So welcome everyone. My name is Shelley Nicol. I am the Executive Director at the St. Albertan District Chamber of Commerce, and I'm thrilled to be here today to introduce myself and give you a brief overview of what our chamber does. So here at the St. Albertan District Chamber of Commerce, we are committed to supporting and connecting businesses of all sizes and industries through a variety of programs and initiatives, from networking events to educational workshops to advocacy efforts, economic research, and this partnership with David to assist businesses in becoming successful in obtaining grants. So we strive to provide our members with the resources and support they need to succeed in today's rapidly changing business environment. So if you're interested in learning more about what we do, you can reach out or visit our website. So before I introduce David, I'd like a few housekeeping items to go over. This webinar is being recorded. I will be monitoring the Q&A. So please don't use the chat, please use the Q&A. And I will bring any questions to David's attention. And lastly, you'll be able to watch this again on David's YouTube channel or from the Chamber's website under Resource tab, Grant Resources. On our website, you will also find many of the links David will go through today and information on other upcoming grant webinars that we have partnered with David on. So now let me introduce David. David Kincade's background includes over a decade of experience as a successful grant writer, totaling over 10 million in wins. He is the author of Golden Grant Rules, the ultimate guide for winning government grants. And prior to founding Alberta Business Grants, David worked for over 4 years at the Legislative Assembly of Alberta as a finance research analyst and executive assistant to the leader of the official opposition. He has also taught political science students at 4 Canadian universities. So take it away, David.
Thanks, Shelley. Appreciate that. Hello, everybody. We are talking today export grants. I'm going to jump right into it because I want to respect your time, and we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. So by all means, feel free to save your questions and ask that. And if you're in the middle of it, actually, could you share the YouTube channel? Yeah, we could, actually. Shelley, do you see that question? Do you mind just throwing that in there? If you need help with it, I can find it quick. I can get it after as well. Actually, let me just give you that right now. It would be, here we go. There. Now, I will share this and we'll get rolling. Okay, thank you very much, Shelley, again for that introduction. This is part of this is our agenda today. So we're just going to quickly go through a Grants 101. I just like to, I know the audience, actually, Shelley, can you release the poll right now? That initial poll that I just want to get a general idea. I won't spend too much time on Grants on 101. If everyone could just answer that poll, just so I could have a quick look at where you're at. I won't spend too much time on that. We're going to do Grants 101. Know some things about export grants. For many of you who are watching this either live or watching this later, there's just some real things that are unique about export grants that I want you to talk about. We're going to go through 3 export grants that you should know about, especially in Alberta. Then meeting grant agencies, some tips on writing grants, and then we'll move you along. As Shelley was mentioning, this is part of a 4-part series we're doing this year just to help businesses understand grants. And in April, because that's when the agriculture grants came out, we did a series on Agriculture Grants 101. That's on their website or my YouTube channel. All this stuff is. And then for those of you kind of just more interested in getting skilled up in grants and general grants, we did a Grants 101 shop in the spring. This one, of course, is exports. And then in December, it's December 5th. It's a student workshop. So you'll be planning, you can register for that on the Chamber website. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in summer grants, to check that out. Here we've got, what are the level of experience? We've got medium, low. What do you want to learn? Fine grants. Okay, cool. So I'll just take my time through this grants 101 because I find oftentimes people, especially if they're getting new to grants, it's a bit foggy. I do it all the time. So I want to make sure that you know what's going on. The objective here, as always, is to win a grant. So if you're new to grants, then let's try to win one of these things. This is my book, Golden Grant Rules, as Shelley mentioned. Little things about me, a few things about me. I mean, I've basically been in government started like in the late 90s. I doing a political science degree, then I did a master's degree, and I taught at 4 universities. I worked at the legislature for 4 years, founded Alberta Business Grants. So I've written, nearly every grant agency you can think of. And yeah, it's just been a passion of mine. I started writing grants. I won 8 in a row. I was like, wow, I think I found my calling. So it was pretty good. And I teach a grant writing course, and I have a lot of experience with export grants. So this is something I feel really comfortable talking about. Obviously, don't know everything, but I've done a lot of them. So, and I've been, fortunate to have a lot of success with them. So I want to share some of the things that I've learned, both from my perspective, but also from companies that I've worked with. My background a little bit, this is an old picture of me, like kind of funny, but I was the president of a nonpartisan political science association. And one of the reasons I laughed at that, of course, that's Paul Martin. We had all these guest speakers in, but it's always been, a fascination with, okay, how does government work? And what's important. It's always interested me. So my company's mission is to build trust between business and government. And that's really where I think the chamber's alignment came in when we worked together. It was about educating business owners, helping them say, here's money, here's the government. They're trying to do this. And business owners kind of struggling, like, where is this stuff? I don't know much about this. So we're trying to bridge that with this series. And so whether you're watching this live or in the future, that's what we're trying to do here. And after this webinar, you're going to have things you need to know about grants, or export grants, which is really important. We're going to go through, this will be the meat of the presentation today, just which export grants, and some tips on how to win them. So let's get started with Grant 101. Between each phase, I'm just going to have this slide so that you can pay attention. So grab yourself some water and kick back, or coffee, whatever you got, and we'll go through this. I always say in grants, and this is my favorite quote, is, governments get elected to do something, and our job as grant writers is to help them achieve their goals. And as soon as you kind of get that mindset of, oh, they formed the government, they're trying to do things, I'm trying to do something, how do I position myself to help, to align with what they're doing, which oftentimes you're growing a business, you are, but learning how to communicate it that way and think that way rather than, hey, give me money. It's just a really healthy mindset. And I think it will help you put your head around, like, okay, now I need to get testimonials from other people and all that stuff. It builds from there. So here are just a couple of fundamentals on grants. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but there was some people with, limited background on this. So what are grants? What we're talking about is taxpayer money. I'll let you read this for a minute. It gets really confusing for people initially, because sometimes grants are never called grants. It's like support, fund, initiative. And they're like, what is it? So yeah, we're talking about grants where it's taxpayer money, you get it, and you don't have to pay it back. Some programs will be like an interest-free loan, but we're talking about grants here. But it can be confusing for people because, like I say, sometimes grants, not a popular word. So it'll be dressed up as something like, beautification program or something. And you're like, well, what? I want a grant, So you just got to kind of get your head around that. I always say grants start an election platform. So whether it's locally, municipally, provincially, or federally, people go out, they'll knock on your doors, they'll talk to people, they'll be like, hey, what's on your mind? They're like, well, I can't find childcare. It's hard. That's what's going on with me. And then the government will go back and they'll say, oh, we need more childcare spaces. Well, how do we do that? And they look at each other and they say, let's get a grant and give people grants, and then they'll build more childcare spaces. It's that simple. That's how it works. So it's a good way to get your head around it. The other thing that's really interesting about grants, and I always teach people, is like all parties like grants or use grants. And, oftentimes in the newspaper, you can get caught up in maybe one party likes them more, but this is like from the last federal election platform. You can see on some of these points here where grants are being advocated by all parties. I've got some slides that are kind of, how those big checks, you ever seen the big check where they come and they say, hey, I gave this? I have a slide in one of my other presentations where it's an NDP person, a conservative person, and a liberal, and it's a different color check for each party, and they're out there giving it. So it's pretty interesting. But for everyone's perspective, what you want to do is you want to understand that they have an election platform, right? They get elected. They go to, this is the legislature in Edmonton or in Ottawa, Parliament. Then they're like, how do we do this? And then they go to bureaucrats and they say, oh, we're going to form, childcare. We'll stay to export right now. We said we create jobs, so we need to have export grants. Then the department, in this case, will administer these programs to people that get money. So there's a couple different stakeholders in here. Sometimes it's provincial, sometimes it's federal. It gets a bit confusing, especially in the export situation, but I'm going to show you that so it won't be so confusing. One little twist here is sometimes there's so much money to give out that they'll have these other organizations called delivery agents. Go back to the last, we're going to touch in a little bit later, but sometimes they'll give like an Eco Canada or a career launcher, one of these organizations that works with youth or environmental groups. They win a grant to administer a program. So my point of this is, for the general public, it can be kind of confusing sometimes when you're trying to find a grant, right? Because it's not the government, it's a delivery agent. They have a name. So that's why you sign up for things like today, or you spend some time to watch this, because we can make it simple for you. Keep in mind, the local government will have grants. This is St. Albert. The provincial government will have grants. This is the provincial export grant. And the feds will have grants. And sometimes they have the same grant. So in this case, there's an Alberta export grant, a federal export grant, and the federal grants will even let you stack it. So you can win 50% of funding up to 50,000. And then if you read in the guidelines, which I'll show you later, they'll let you stack up to 75. So if you know what you're doing in this, it can be really important. Now you're going to have to do your due diligence, make sure they allow stacking because you're working with two parties. But it's pretty amazing once you start to get your head around this stuff. Okay, I've been talking for a bit, so just a quick quiz for you. Very easy quiz, might add. It's Friday. I don't want to work it too hard. True or false? Taxpayers want a return on their money. Obviously, you know what the answer is to that. And who do you think is more eligible for grants? Exporting businesses or small local businesses? And the reason, so Shelley, this chat right now, they can only answer questions, right?
Yeah, in the Q&A.
In the Q&A.
So they can put their answers in there. I have it up and open.
Yeah, if you can drop your answer in there, exporting versus say a barber shop, is a good example. Well, as you probably kind of are guessing, there's a real advantage to helping companies export, right? Because then they get more sales, we get more tax revenue, we need more jobs. I mean, they are a real big hit with government. And while there's export grants, I want to also let you know, just true or false, but you just don't stop there. So those of you watching this because you're interested in export grants, yeah, there's export grants, but you're eligible for like employee grants and training grants and potentially innovation grants too if you're manufacturing something. I'm going to keep going here for a sec. Let's go on to things you need to know about grants. So oftentimes I'll meet somebody, an entrepreneur over the years, and they'll say, hey, we have a trade show when you're watching this right now, or it's September, and they're like, there's a trade show in Vegas in last weekend or middle of October, 3 weeks away. If we want to go, can we get a grant? And you're going to find in grants, you're really focusing on like the next year, right? You're almost thinking about, we're September 2023 right now. You're talking about 2024. The next year out, you got to focus. So grants fund future projects. They almost never go back. Sometimes on CanExport, if you're applying in like May, if you're applying in May, they'll let you go back to the government fiscal year of April 1st. But in general, grants, export grants fund future projects. And you often need to apply months before you travel. Now, provincially, I'll show you, it's a 6-week thing. 6 weeks, they want them in. but oftentimes, if they're really, hopefully that's the time frame, they'll get back to you in time. So oftentimes I've seen over the years, that's a trickier one. Federally, it's even more challenging because the grant opens April 1st. I'll get to that in a minute. But it's like, so if it opens April 1st, we're September, you've got to start building this grant application, what trade shows you're going to, where are you going to go, what's your export strategy. You really got to get ahead. Be mindful that they open and close. The provincial one, I found in my experience, is much less writing than the federal one. That's very important to know. If you're just going to go on a show, like, why not write one that's going to save you a lot of time? So I would encourage you to look to the provincial one. Now they're updating them all the time. So at the time of writing this, it was easier. Like, you might go back and the portals open might have changed, but I found that. Now the federal one, in fairness, is more comprehensive. They've got, a lot of things more eligible, which I'll show you in a minute. And different grants fund different expenses. So these are just things you need to know about export grants. You're thinking ahead, you're getting in early, you're planning your trade shows. And if you just do that step, understanding your projects, you're going to be well ahead of most people, in my experience, when you're getting grants. This is a great image that I love to look at when we're talking with grants. A lot of small businesses, especially the innovative ones, can apply for, Alberta Innovates would have like a micro voucher, or they'd have a voucher, or commercialization pilot test emission reduction in Alberta. You hear about that. They won like a $3 million grant to test a carbon capture and storage place. For our purposes today, we're over here. We're talking about companies in exporting that they're selling abroad. And this is the space where you can get grants. But it's just good for you to know that there's really grants along the entire journey. Okay, finding export grants. In general, in grants, it's good to get your head around this. This is where most of the money goes, to these industries. So, a really good grant company would be like an ag tech company that's exporting. If you've got a company that's in two of these and exporting, it's like, whoa, you're going to win a lot of grants. So you may know someone who's like that. But in general, you can see export is an area where there's funding, and you should know about it if you're doing it. One of the cool things you can do too, I always encourage people really early on, is a lot of the grants are public. So once you win them every quarter, the feds have to, if it's over $25,000, they have to release this list. And just for fun, I downloaded it. I'll show you something here. Here's this. You can see there's 49 grants this year on the export side in Alberta. You can see that okay, Shell? Yep. And you can see, here we've got a half a dozen from the local area. So you can search this, and I would encourage you to do that. Okay, who won it? Where are they? So it's pretty cool. So that's just something you want to do early on, the type of projects they're funding. In terms of finding grants, there's a lot of free resources out there as well. The government of Canada will have some sites there's a large open grant database on my website. You can just search, and it's on a grant page. And Shelley, you could even throw that in the chat for them if you want. It's the grant search feature. It was a database of over 1,000 grants, and each grant's on a page, so it's very easy to find. And we're going to show you today which grants are for exporting. You also want to be, when you're finding grants, like they open and close. So find a way to know which grants are coming up. So I have a free newsletter every Monday morning that's published called the Grant Gazette. You can register at the top of Alberta Business Grants. And every Monday I publish a list of grants with upcoming deadlines, and export is a section on that. So I would also encourage you, go to the grants that you like and sign up for their notifications, so you hear it right from them, especially if you like one of their grants. So a couple tips here: grab the low-hanging fruit. If you're totally new at grants, which some of you are from the poll at the beginning, focus on one grant at a time, early on, and just be mindful. Keep a positive relationship with them, because you can win multiple grants. Like, I've got one client that's won the export grant 3 years in a row. So it can be a real game changer once you build a good relationship and you show that you're delivering on results. Now, grant categories. This is where we're going to focus today, and then I'm going to highlight a couple other ones for you. If I would take a picture of this screen if I were you, This is the Alberta Export Grant. And notice this, I took this from its website. Applications must be submitted no less than 6 months before the start of the first activity. So like I say, for most people, it's a trade show. So do your best, now that you know this, to get those in nice and early. And then this on the left side of the screen, you can see who this is for. So not total startups, like people that have already hit 50,000 in revenue. And then over here, it's pretty amazing. Like, look at this. Translations, going to trade shows, accommodation, airfare. I always say it's like crazy. You know, two entrepreneurs are on a plane leaving Edmonton, going to Vegas on the same flight. They attended the Chamber Award Gala the night before. And one of them is getting 50% off their flight. Look at this, like ground transportation, trade shows. And I mean, these things are not cheap. Anyone who knows about going to trade shows in Europe or any of these trade shows, it's a huge saving. So that's a good to know. Then there's one for technology companies. This one's 20,000. Again, they'll open and close. So that one is open. The first one that I showed you, this one is currently closed. I emailed them, said, hey, when are you opening up again? They said, we don't know yet, but that's kind of like when you want to reach out to them, build a relationship. But you can say, oops, sorry about that. That's the Fed one. Here's who's eligible. These are organizations. And this is money going to a service provider to do these type of things, which could be like an accountant or e-commerce strategy. So it's pretty awesome. 20 grand to really get your exporting in place. And the third one is the federal one. And you can see here are the companies before profit. You got to have 100K in minimum, up to 100 million. And like, look at this one, search engine optimization. Like, how great is that? Trade shows, intellectual property. I mean, I've worked with a lot of export companies. When you get into like IP and federally, and then the rules and regulations and certifications, especially if you're going to the EU, like, oh my gosh, you're in food. It's a lot. So this can save a ton of cash and you can win it year after year. So they're my favorite grants. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, they're just so good. You're going to go to these places, you can meet people and you can save bucks. I'm going to quickly scan a couple more for you here, but we've got summer students. These export businesses can get energy savings. This one's full, but I'm sure it'll reopen. So if you got, you're manufacturing or you're doing something with a facility, there's other grants you could get eligible for. The digital adoption program, which many of you have probably heard of, it's out on sort of a strategy. You can get like $2,400 for some hard costs. And then employee grants. And again, remember how I mentioned at the beginning, there were like government bureaucrats and sometimes there's delivery agents. You can see these are delivery agents, right? So take a picture of that too. And on my website, in that grant database, you can do employees, and there's a lot of employee grants. So might actually be a good topic, Shelley, to talk about sometime, actually, just employee grants. There's a lot of them and they tend to be quite popular. So things you need to know, okay? Be mindful of relevant terms and grant guidelines. Like I always say, grants are like not IKEA furniture. If you're one of these people that likes to assemble things without reading the instructions, you got to know the rules and understand things like the fiscal year. So the provincial and federal government goes April 1st to March 31st. So I've seen a number of times where the grants they open up in April. So you got to get ready. So this is a good time to get ready for next year. They'll close, say in September. And sometimes where people don't spend all the money, believe it or not, they'll open it back up in December for a window or late in the fall, and you can get some more applications in. So understanding the fiscal year, like if you've never known government, you don't know this kind of stuff, you're flying blind, but hopefully you're getting some skills. Here's some other things I want to talk to you about. A lot of people don't know you can talk to the grant agency. So we have a blog. It's on your site. Shelley, you can throw that one in there too, if you don't mind. It's 6 questions to ask a grant agency. It's on your grant resource page. Like, I would really encourage you to reach out to these people, build a relationship with them, attend their events, get to know them, tell your story so that they're like, oh, yeah, I know so-and-so, like, I know Paula's doing this really cool. Paula's trying to go into the US, and then you build that relationship. It can be just a great advantage for you. Now, a couple other things I want to give you. Here's some tips. Again, you may want to take photos of this too. When it comes to exporting, like some are easier than others. I found the provincial one to be much easier. Now you don't get the search engine optimization and stuff like that. But I mean, if you're just going to a trade show, the provincial one's open, go for that, right? Next is like this is from the federal website. Look at this. Applications are processed on a first come, first served. I mean, it's almost unbelievable if you think about it. Like there's money, it's sitting there, first come, first serve. And look, they have so much money that they're not fully committed to the fall. So it opens in April. So if you're organized and you're like, wow, you're attending this, it's just a total game changer for you. Remember about stacking. This is like, should be your new favorite word of the week. You should go around just at dinner tonight and you say, you know what, I feel like stacking tonight, not hamburgers, but stacking grant dollars on top of each other. Like what an amazing thing. This is the federal CanExport grant. Look, Canadian government assistance must not exceed 75%, so you can stack it up. Plan ahead. This is probably it sounds the most obvious, but I find the most common is most people, in my experience, aren't thinking about a year out, which trade shows. And, you put two people in a room, there can be a lot of disagreement on that. So really focus on nailing 2024 if you're watching this, or if it's down the road, the next year, get like really dialed in, meet these people. And speaking of meeting people, the feds have trade commissioners who are awesome, and they are across the country and they'll meet with you. In fact, in the CanExport application, there's a box, did you talk to a trade commission? So, I find they do an extremely good job at resourcing the export side. And be mindful of missions. Like once you get into a space like exports, like there's a lot of stakeholders and they have these missions. And right now, if you go onto the website, you'll see it opened up only for participants of Team Canada trade missions. So, figure out how they operate, figure out the stakeholders in their space, build trust with them, and you're probably going to have a lot of success. And I always say, the naughty list, right? You're building a relationship with these people. You do not want to, like, if you're not going to use all your dollars, which I know probably sounds crazy for most of you, but when you get into export, oh, you're going to go to a trade show. Now you're not, or you thought it was going to be X and it ends up being Y. Communicate. Like if you're not going to use it, talk to them. Don't look at this. It will impact. Don't have your future money impacted because you failed to communicate. Okay. So things to look forward to and things to avoid. Finally, just there's some free resources for you. There's also a book and a course coming up. I run a grant writing class 3 times a year, seeing the chamber events for more information as well, especially our event coming up in December for student grants if you want to hire next year. So with that, I'll stop and thank you for your time and attention. And Shelley, I'll turn it back to you.
You. So I can allow people to speak. Would you rather have that, David?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, let's see. Anyone wants to jump on here? Oh, cool. Now we can see everyone. Hello, everybody.
Oh, and if you just use the bottom, like the bottom, raise your hand, you'll see that little icon. If you have a question. I will say we didn't touch on this, David, but reaching out to your local MLA or your local MP and getting a letter of support, very important to help you be successful in your grant.
Yeah, for sure. You want to engage your stakeholders. Has anyone here exported before? To the
Okay.
you can take can people unmute? You can unmute. John, have you exported before?
The other way, I haven't exported from Canada. I'm actually up from the US, and we're bringing technology to partners here that are within ag and water, and we will be exporting manufacturing here and exporting for sure to the States, but most likely globally once we hit, you know, the point with it. So
Yeah. So just keep telling the stakeholders your story, right? That's a pretty cool story. And also be mindful that the IP, like oftentimes a question you'll get asked is the IP belong to a Canadian company? If just make sure that, you know, you're covered in that area. That's especially on the innovation side. But if you're manufacturing and you're sending abroad, and you got a Canadian business, that should be fine. And any clarifications, you can always ask the grant agency. Paula, do you export? Are you looking to export?
John raised his hand again.
Oh, John, go ahead.
when you say agencies, are you an agency, or are these other people that you need to get with?
Yeah. So I'm a grant writer and I teach a grant writing class, right? So companies will hire me or their employees will take my training and I'll do speaking like this. But like the funding body, so the federal government, the provincial government, and delivery agents, they'll have events, John. So you'll want to know all those organizations, you know, attend their workshops, attend their live events, get to know them, tell your story. So just they know who you are. That's what I recommend. So when you're applying, you know, you're not a complete stranger. They'll often have conferences, like Alberta Innovates has an annual conference in May in Calgary. If you're doing something as innovative as you are, you definitely would want to consider doing that because you can meet them all at one place.
Is Alberta Innovates the best starting point?
What is your technology again?
We have a hydroxyl water and air purification systems. And so they're relatively new. We're also automating them so that we can track and program remotely. And it's already going into like poultry operations, dairy, indoor grows, that type of thing. So it's sort of, we're further along, but you know, we're looking for any assistance we can get.
Yeah, I would speak with it's called the Sustainable Canadian Agriculture Partnership. That's the Federal Agriculture Department. So I'll put the SCAP Alberta Agriculture. I'll put that in the chat for you. And I would have a chat with them.
It seems like there's a lot, and this, from the sound of it, made it sound separate from, like, say, Alberta Innovates, if you want to do export grants. So is it a different place to go to, or would they?
Well, you know, you're checking a lot of boxes, what I'm saying, right? So you're doing, yeah. So if I were you, I would talk to Alberta Innovates, I would talk to IRAP, and I would talk to the Department of Agriculture. Under their programs. Like right, you know, right away.
John, so just to clarify, there are provincial, which is the province of Alberta, the provincial government has grants, and then the federal government, Canadian government, will have separate grants. So there are two places that you can go to find some funds that you need.
Okay. Can you just throw that list in the chat just so we can?
Yeah. Can you see? It's only allowing me to chat, Shelley, to, I think can you take that and put it in?
I'll copy it.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Can everybody see the ones that I put in there? It says meet everybody. So
on the Q&A, yes.
Yes.
There you go. On the Q&A, but not in the chat.
Now I see it in the chat.
Okay, perfect.
Cool. And John, you know where Alberta Innovates is, right?
I do have a contact there. We met with someone in Edmonton. They have a very specific one for water. Perfect. We're pursuing that, but I was thinking that that's separate, and there's just so many. You know, it seemed like the export ones, we might have to go somewhere else to look at that. Or no, we have a good contact actually at Alberta Innovates right now.
That's great. And they are different grants, right? Like you can have an Alberta Innovates grant, and you can have a CanExport SME grant, and you can have an Alberta AEEP grant. There's nothing, you know, precluding you from having 3 grants going.
Right.
Sorry, Paula raised her hand, but put it down. I'm not sure if she had a question or not.
Yeah, hi. No, I put it down and then I realized I was putting it down. And can you hear me?
We can, yeah.
Oh, okay, thanks. So my business is is training mediators in conflict resolution, and we have national accreditation and international accreditation.
Huh.
And when the courses went online during the pandemic, we now have students from many different countries around the world joining. And so I don't know how there's grants for that. I'm wanting to run a World Mediation Summit in Edmonton next year. So I don't know if there's grants for that, just to provide a cushion. But also I've been asked if I would deliver would I translate my materials to Mandarin? And because we have students in Malaysia, we have students in South Korea and in France. And so I've done some delivery over Teams, a bilingual delivery for federal government on restoring workplaces post-investigation, that sort of thing. And that was bilingual, but it was only 2 days long and it was good. And they paid for the translation company and everything else. But I thought I'd like to be able for the students from other countries to learn in their own language whenever possible. And I'm wondering, are there grants that could be applied to translating course materials or training instructors in other countries to offer and it was created here. I've created all the training. So
first of all, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Like, good job.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One is that, are you in Alberta?
Yep.
Yeah, you're in Alberta based. So
yes.
There's your, they're in the chat right now. Shelley, you're going to have to copy and paste that into but that export expansion program, you can translate materials.
Okay.
So, if you've got customers abroad, I would start there. And if you have any clarifications, I would email them, say, hey, would this work? That is the first one. Yep. Go ahead. And then on the
thank you.
Yeah, on the event side, Paula, you'll often see when you go to events, they'll have like logos underneath the name. They'll be like, welcome to this event. So
sponsored by,
and supported by, and there'll be government departments, right? There'll be, so I would figure out the departments that align with you, everything from, it's a bit trickier, right? I would start with even local municipalities. Sometimes the city of Edmonton will have an export grant. Then there's provincial tourism grants. Sometimes almost 3 levels of government sometimes will get behind these things if there's good reason. So I would definitely, I would kind of begin, I would go into the open grant database and I would type in conference and I would kind of try to dig around to see who's winning, who's doing this already, because there's a number of conferences. And I would go backwards from there, be like, oh, Prairie Scan funded some. Okay, I'll go talk to them. Oh, Tourism Alberta did. Oh, the city you're in, city of Edmonton or St. Albert, wherever you're going to have it. Hey, we want to have a conference. We need a room. I would do that. I mean, you'd be surprised. I mean, how many people are you talking about bringing in?
I'd like to bring in a couple of hundred, because the focus, we have graduates from all over the world, and the focus is on culturally appropriate mediation processes. Like we teach the model that's recognized in Canada, but it's about promoting, because I've also designed and delivered the Indigenous peacemaking program for the last 20 some years.
Yeah.
That's only being exported to other provinces at this time, but it could easily, it has to be taught face to face, mind you. So that one's a little trickier. But if there was grants available to travel and to deliver that to local Indigenous people in other countries, I think it would be brilliant. But the conference is about promoting African ways and having the world community recognize that there's so many ways to resolve conflicts and disputes. My master's is in peace building. So I've worked in other countries as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, to me, I think it's a great product to promote, or not even a product. It's just a brilliant thing to promote. And to do it here in Canada, it hasn't happened before.
Yeah. I would just take that approach. Look at who's doing it. other people
Yeah.
are doing cool stuff. The other thing I want to tell is look at organizations. Sometimes organizations like associations, like large associations, think like, an organization that represents all entities,
Yeah.
they can sometimes partner with you, or they'll have a grant program, or they can apply for a grant to help put this on. So it's like pretty deep right now. I would start with the easy level
Yeah.
and then go a little bit deeper.
Okay.
But good work. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you're
Thank
welcome.
you.
John, one other thing that you just before I forget about you is don't get too overwhelmed by it either. Get yourself a grant calendar, find your 6 grants that you're going to go after, get your projects aligned with them, and enroll. I know you'll be fine.
Yeah, I copied all these and I've already brought the websites up and I made a copy of the links. So I'll literally just start pounding through it. But we've we've got a good starting point, and I guess there's an ag division at Alberta Innovates as well, a digital ag. So we're trying to get with them. So I'm just not used to any of this. It doesn't work this way, and Canada's a little better at helping. And so fantastic, actually.
Yeah, you'll get the hang of it once you get in there. Just keep building trust, being honest and straightforward and to the point, and they'll like you and they'll help you. So I always find the relationship's really, really important. Cool.
So just to review some things, David, I personally know somebody on this call. So they're a smaller business and maybe haven't thought about where would they start? Let's say they wanted to go to an expo in Vegas to bring their product. Never thought of it before, but hey, if I can get some funds to do this, where would I start?
Yeah. Well, it's pretty awesome, eh? Like even that AEEP one that I showed you, it's 25 grand and it's open. So I made a very simple term, find the conference, and say, you know what, I'm going to take a shot at this, get a quote for it and submit a grant, get a testimonial. But usually some of them are first come, first serve as long as you're eligible. I like to reach out to them if possible, but these ones are usually pretty clean. Like if you say, hey, I've got this product and I'm going to sell it, just put it in and go for it. I mean, that is the best thing. Next level would be attending like their events. Like they tend to have a lot of, like the trade commission would be a great example. Say, hey, I'm looking at going, especially if you get into regulations or something, but it's always good just to reach out and have a conversation. Hey, I'm looking at doing this. They should know the best practices. Sometimes they can give you a warm introduction, which is awesome, right? Like, oh yeah, I know someone over there. I'll make an intro. It's like, oh, okay. Like how helpful is that? But it's good for you for showing up and saying, hey, I think I can take this to the US. Like you're really amazing, because so many people I've met, they're like, I've been exporting for 6 years. I didn't even know there were these grants, or I never wanted to do it. So the fact that you're like planning ahead is you're well ahead of the curve. But go for these ones. Like, like first come, first serve, sitting there. You just got to be organized. Like, come on. Like you I don't want to say you'd be crazy not to, but I mean, really, just get organized, figure out your project.
No. Well, that's the first thing I'm going to do. This is well worth my time. I appreciate both of your time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing, really. They're great too. Like I said in the talk, I've had people win these year over year. The other thing too is I never really talked about it, but I always like to make, you don't have to brag, but kind of tell your story. Like, don't make it impossible to see your achievements. So little things like if you do go to Vegas, you can send a postcard and say, hey, thanks. We're down here at the trade show, or a picture of you at the trade show, or, make a LinkedIn post that, hey, we're doing some exciting export stuff. So when they do Google you, they can just say, who is this person? It's like, oh, okay. There's a picture of their facility in Alberta, there they are, doing some stuff. Like make it fairly, make it easy for them to know, like, and trust you. Don't make it hard to find you and figure out the difficult or the long way that you're a great person doing cool stuff. So typical Alberta way, I'd meet entrepreneurs. They'd be like, giving and doing all kinds of cool stuff and then buried everywhere. How about we just we don't have to brag or nothing, but like, let's just show that you're a good person and put that in there. Okay. Doesn't hurt. Because remember, it's the stakeholders, right? You got the government, and then you got these bureaucrats, and then yourself. So they're two. I didn't do it here, but you know, you think of politicians as more like, you know, they're taking a big risk, they're running, they're putting everything on the line, and then a bureaucrat's like a very safe position, and they have to steward the public's dollars. So it's this fine line of showing your growth and also that you're responsible, right? Because it's public dollars. So it's this fine balancing act. But I think you start attending shows like this, read a book like this, attend a few YouTube stuff, you'll get your head around this pretty quick.
And again, they're not like the bureaucrats and the politicians are very approachable.
Yeah.
We've had them on one of the other webinars that we did. They have the money. They want you to take their money.
Mm-hmm.
They're really not trying to make it hard. Although if you don't follow the rules, it seems like it's hard. So definitely reach out, ask for help. That's what we're paying them for with our tax dollars.
Yeah. Find the money,
yeah.
Meet the grant agency, write the application. Find, meet, write. That's the secret sauce in grants. Whenever you get out of that order, whenever I get out of that order, I get into trouble. So to that person, you know, we're like, oh, I should just put it in. Oh, no, we had to have it in 6 weeks before. It's like, oh, and read their stuff too. Like you can just picture them, right? And then you're going to ask them a question that was right there on the website. Like I always say, come on, read the program guide 4 times before you call them. And I always will say, listen, I know you kind of alluded to this into your grant guidelines, or I saw this, but can you explain it a bit more? You know, good people are hard to find, I always say, right? Good people are hard to find. So they'll know if you're serious. So a little bit of effort, you go a long way. Saucin, Mian, any thoughts, questions?
Sorry, there's some questions in the chat. So Swanson said, for a small business, sometimes to expand to other provinces can feel intimidating. So is there any supports?
Oh, good question. Not many, you know, like most of these grants are like your student, like they'll fund you this way. It'll be like, they'll give you student grants. They'll give you grants for interns, for staff to go to other, you know, to scale up your capacity. But I don't know of any grants. I don't think there's any grants. It's like, you know, here's a grant to go to Toronto for a trade show. Kind of interesting, eh? It's actually, yeah, my chat is disabled. No,
it's not on purpose. It's because it's a webinar format. So there's another question. Do you know any agency that helps set up a business on government procurement platform?
Do I know of any business
or any agency that helps businesses get set up for government procurement?
No, but you know, a place like I don't know, a chamber member might, somewhere like micro business training. They have, like, if you Google micro business training, they're in Edmonton. They have a lot, like they train entrepreneurs. You might find they might know someone that does. I've never heard that question before. Sounds like a good little business though.
Paula has a question.
Well, just if they haven't heard of MerX, MERX, then yeah, get your company on MerX, and they have little tutorials and people you can talk to. Also, provincial government procurement, like to get on the Alberta government procurement list. Yeah, and then you just follow the instructions and get on the list and phone them and say, I don't know what that question means. But usually the federal government at one time did offer a one-day workshop on how to respond to requests for proposals. It was amazing. And I still use it today. But it's much the same as what you're saying about grant writing. follow the steps, read the instructions 300 times, do exactly as you're told in the order that they ask for the information.
So true.
That's pretty much what I learned that day.
Paul, you just gave another really good tip too, and that is oftentimes the grant agencies will have events like come meet us, come learn, we'll show you how to do it. Like attend those. Like doing stuff like this is just, I find just gold. And I go to grant events all the time. It's just like they're there, and it's just such a game changer.
So we have another question. So, Mian, sorry if I said your name wrong. They're an academic organization. Actually, their focus is on partnership with businesses on grants, like work integrated learning. Any suggestions?
Yeah. So there's this organization called Alliance Grants, Google Alliance Grants. It's like these partnerships between business. They're like 20,000 to $1 million. That is a world that I think is just so untapped. Like governments, almost most grant applications you'll read, they're like, we want to see collaborations between industry, academic, and government, and they want this collaboration. I've been doing this a long time. Very few, known academic / industry partner. Now, I'm not saying there's not the kind of carbon capture, emission reduction, Alberta, there's stuff there, but I think it's a really untapped area that there's quite a bit of money in that space. So I would search that open grant database. I would search Alliance Grants. Another one is MyTax, MITACS or something like that. And they have sort of like funding academics in industry there. Yeah. I've done a little bit of work with them, not too much, primarily because I found with businesses, it was difficult to find people on the academic. Like I'm always usually with the business, finding the academics to partner with. It was a bit of a challenge. So on my website, do that grant database, search the university partnerships, like go all in on that. I think you'd be really surprised. It's a great opportunity for sure.
And as a chamber, I'm just going to plug chambers here. As a chamber, you can reach out to the provincial chambers. So if you're in Alberta, you can go to the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. You're on Ontario, the Ontario Chambers of Commerce. That might be a good place too, where you can start to find ways to make those connections.
Shelly, in the chat there's 3 buttons. Can you, if you click on those 3 buttons, does it give you an option as the host to enable chat for everybody?
No, the only option is host and panelists are the only 2 in there. It says everyone can see it. I don't know why it's not enabled for people to put the questions in there.
I'm scared to go in the back end and do it because I don't want to end this.
So John has a question and Paula still has her hand up. So I'm not sure if that's a separate question.
John, did you
just wanted to know when you said that. No, go ahead, Paula.
Paula, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say bye. I have to run to my next appointment. And this has been so great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Paula. Thanks for your feedback too. Bang on. John?
Shelley, I was wondering are the chambers, are they per city, or is there a general one for Alberta, or because obviously you were with St. Albert, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So the way they work here is that we call them the community chamber. So we're the community of St. Albert. We're part of the Alberta Chambers of Commerce, and then we're also part of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. So we have that whole connection provincially, like locally, municipally, provincially, and federally. So we're connected. So you could either start right at your whatever area you're in. You start with the community chamber, or you can it's probably better to start at your community chamber and they can make those connections for you.
Yeah.
All the way right up to federal.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And John, in Canada, like it's a great way to like network and meet stakeholders, right? So, they'll have the local chamber or business awards. They'll have the provincial business awards. There'll be a ton of MLAs, maybe some cabinet ministers there, and they're all there and they're networking and they're, it's relaxed.
Well, I just pulled down a sheet that gave me all the executive council because I know that our Minister of Finance, who used to be the Minister of Ag, Nate Horner, spent the whole week last week traveling, drumming up business to come to Alberta. And so we just want to stick our hand up and say, well, we're already here. We do.
There you go. Good for you.
But I don't know at that level, is that too high?
No, not at all, John.
Okay.
Sorry, where are you? Like, where are you located in Alberta?
Well, we've got offices in Calgary, Red Deer, and then looking for another one. And then I float back and forth to Edmonton because I'm dealing with TELUS, and then that's our Alberta Innovates is actually up there. I meet them at the bell tower. So I'm the floater.
Okay, so I'm putting my email
Okay.
in the chat. Send me an email with your contact information. I'll get you in touch with the executive director at Red Deer, in Red Deer.
Okay.
I know him quite well, so I'll get you guys connected.
Is it in the Q&A or the chat? Oh no, there it is there. Okay,
There it is
great.
in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah. John, you're doing the right things.
Good. I know we're hitting a lot of buttons. We've got a lot of excited people.
Yeah. Keep going. You know,
Yep.
you're doing the right thing. Jen England, you've been very quiet. You still there?
I am indeed, David. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, I come from the world of art and culture. So I'm fascinated by this idea that first come, first serve, because that's not how it works in the other areas. It's very selective in terms of I think what the mandates are, culturally speaking.
Yeah.
If
Well,
that makes sense.
do you know what?
There's filters that are not, there are filters, not first come, first serve, which seems like an excellent advantage.
Yeah, some of the business ones, I would totally agree with you. Like, there's other things I was going to show you.
Sorry, David.
Yeah.
Mean had another question about, do you have a grant writing? I don't know where the question went. It was about how do we get more information on writing grants? So I was trying to, so maybe you want to speak about your course?
Yeah, 3 times a year, I offer an advanced grant writing class to help people build a master grant application so that they can copy and paste it and put in the CanExport grant, put in Alberta Innovates, put in ag grants. And we get you a grant for that as well. Or if you're eligible, we'll get a grant to cover 2/3 of it. So there's one coming up next week, and then the next one starts in January. So if you're interested in that, you can just reach out to my email. If you don't mind, I can put my email in there and it can help you with that. So feel free to do that. And Jen, I hear you, but just don't give up, being organized, keep doing all the things that you're doing. You'll get there.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's certainly a question of acquiring practice. I think that there's and this is just, I think I'm not really sure that you're the expert, that, in the stream of grants that you're writing for, there's language that is, I don't know, that helps it go down the pipeline, and it's a question of finding out what that language is in each community, I guess, maybe would be the accurate.
I call it government ease. You want to put it in there.
Right. Okay.
But you know what? In my course, it's a 12-week course, right? A couple hours each of 12 weeks. We have only 3 weeks on writing grants. And really, it's about getting your story really clear, not burying the lead. The rest of the course is understanding government, finding the money, matching it with projects, meeting the grant agencies. Then you're kind of writing those compelling answers. And then you're kind of like your social and economic indicators, managing risk. So don't you got to get, a clear proposal that aligns with what they want. Your missions align. That's kind of where I started the talk today. It was like, you've got the government mandate, your mandate, but don't underestimate. Find the money, tell a good story, match it with the funds. You're ahead of most people in my experience. Shell?
Yes, sorry. It's 101.
Okay.
And in Chamber World, we like to keep things right on time.
Right
so
on.
I know John had his hand up. So John, my best advice is my email is in here in the chat, and so is David's. Reach out. That's what we're here for. So David,
I'm sorry, I just didn't lower it. I've got both of your emails and I'll reach out to both of you. So
okay, perfect.
Thank you
so
for
I'll leave it
attending.
to you, David, to close us off.
I would say you know, just congratulations for taking a step in this direction. Like, you'd be amazed. A little bit of planning is going to go a long way. And thank you to the chamber for doing this. I mean, Shelley, you guys are the best at this. I mean, you're really helping companies. So thank you for having me. See you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.